Hey guys, welcome to my Audi e-tron S review. I actually posted a picture of this car on my Instagram the first day I got it, and I asked for everyone's input as to what I should test with this particular car, and the most popular answer by a long way was testing its range, its claimed range. Audi claim this new e-tron S will do 222 miles on the combined cycle, WLTP, so that should be quite accurate. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon, almost perfect conditions for an EV, so there's going to be no excuses for headlamps, heated seats, windscreen wipers. None of that's going to need to be on, so it should be a pretty good test. But I am going to take it on motorways, I'm going to take it on A and B roads, and I might even take it through a town, so a bit of a mix of driving. I'm going to tend to drive it quite efficiently though, except for when I take it to one of my favourite roads where we're going to talk about its driving dynamics, because this is the S model after all. It's very, very fast, and we'll get to that a bit later. As you can probably tell, I'm at a charging station. You tend to spend a lot of time at charging stations if you don't have the charging facilities at home, which I don't because I don't own an electric car. And it's fully topped up now, so we're going to start from here with a full battery and see how far we get. You now join me inside the e-tron S. We have a full charge, although the range is currently saying 176 miles, so hopefully we can get a bit more than that, but we'll have to see. In terms of cabins, well, it's just lovely in here. I think this is the nicest cabin that Audi currently do. It's a nice place to spend a lot of time in, although you can't spend that much time in here, as we'll find out today, because the range is not massive. The last video I actually did like this was with my 730 LD before it went back, my chauffeuring car, and hopefully many of you have seen that video. If you haven't, there's a link up here. I actually managed to do over 900 miles on one tank of diesel in that car, so I think EVs have still got a long way to go to catch up with the likes of a very efficient diesel. We're currently in Milton Keynes. We're going to head up the M1 towards Northampton, and then we're going to head cross country sort of towards Oxford to a little town called Charlbury, which happens to be where my favourite road is. We'll take you along that road and I'll talk to you about the driving dynamics of this car, and then we can get onwards and upwards and see how we go from there. Charlbury is about 50 miles away, and I've obviously just reset all of the trip computers and stuff, so I will join you probably in about 45 minutes time. Okay, you joined me just over an hour after I left the charging station. We've covered just over 50 miles. The predicted range is currently saying 149 miles, so that would give us a total range of about 200 miles, which is what I'm aiming for. So that's good, because when we left the charging station it was saying 176 miles, so we've made up almost 25 miles in the journey so far. I have been regenning as much as possible, so coming into roundabouts I've been coming off the accelerator. You can use this left paddle actually to increase the regen as you're approaching a junction or a roundabout. But these e-trons are very, very smart and intelligent. In fact, they use satellites and mapping to work out how much speed they need to scrub off coming into a 30 zone or into a roundabout or whatever. So it's a very intelligent car. If you come off the accelerator on a road like this in a 50 zone doing 50, it would just coast. But if I come off the accelerator as we're approaching a 30 zone, it will start regenning to try and get to 30 by the time it actually gets to the village itself. So very, very intelligent. I actually went to the Audi UK launch of the E-tron about 2 years ago, and I was blown away by it as a product, as an EV. You know, it's an amazing piece of engineering. The one issue with it was lack of range, and that hasn't really changed, especially with this S. The S is more of a sporty version, if you like, a bit like a SQ7. So we've got plenty more power, about 500 horsepower, 370 kilowatts, and a ridiculous amount of torque. 970 newton meters of torque. I think that's when you're using the overboost function, which is only available for about 8 seconds, but 8 seconds of overboost is enough to get you into some serious speeds in this car, even though it weighs about 2.65 tons. Pricing, well, the regular e-tron starts at about £70,000 here in the UK. The e-tron S is about 90 grand, and this one, being a press car, has a few toys thrown at it. It's about 95-ish grand on the road. They also do the e-tron and e-tron S Sportback, so the more sporty 4- or 5-door coupe looking one, if you like. I prefer the regular SUV shaped one. I think if you're going to have a car this big, this heavy, you might as well have it as practical as possible. You get more headroom back here, you get more boot space, etc. It's just like BMW with their X4 and X6s. I just don't see the point. I don't think they're any better looking, and they're less practical, and they're slightly more expensive as well. So what is the point? I think the Sportback gives you an extra 2 miles of range or something. So yeah, next to nothing. This is something I love about EVs. When you're cruising through sleepy little villages or even towns or cities, you don't feel like you're intruding on anyone. You can hear the birds singing. People tend to smile at you even though you're in a large SUV. You wouldn't normally get smiles in. And it's just a nice car to cruise around in. The ride quality when you're in comfort is actually very good. You're always aware of the weight and the mass of this car though, and that definitely translates to when you put it into a sporty mode, which we're going to do now. Let's knock it into dynamic. There we go. So it stiffens up somewhat, a bit more weighting in the steering and even more throttle response. I get the boost function now that I think is available for 8 seconds, and that just gives me that maximum torque and power whenever I want it. That's the thing with EVs, is maximum power and maximum torque are available as soon as you touch the accelerator. As soon as you put your foot down, it's there, everything. It's ridiculous. In fact, I timed this car's 0 to 60 yesterday, so let's cut to that and you can see the results and see how fast this car actually is. I don't want to do it today because it would affect the overall range. Okay, launch control in the e-tron S. Audi claim it would do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 4.5 seconds, which is crazy for something this large and weighing about 2.6 tons. But we have about 500 horsepower and almost 1,000 newton meters of torque, which is just madness. Traction control is switched off. I'm in dynamic. My race box is ready. Left foot is hard down on the brake, right foot on the accelerator. Here we go. And there's 60 miles an hour. 4.21 seconds in the green. That is just incredible. No sense or sign of slip, just off you go immediately. All of that torque, all of that power. I've got lots of camera gear in the boot, and I've actually got my other half sitting just out of shot on camera here. So it's a real life test, and that's very, very impressive. Now we're coming into a really nice twisty section of this road, and you're really aware of its weight. It really doesn't feel like it wants to turn. It will turn, but it just feels like there's so much momentum there, which there is. This actually weighs a little bit more than a regular e-tron, so it's probably arguably less sporty on a road like this because it just weighs that much more. Most of the weight is low down, all the batteries are basically on the floor, and this e-tron S actually has 3 electric motors, so 2 on the rear axle and 1 on the front axle, which helps give it all of that pace. Things like overtaking ability, well, it's just ridiculous, as you can imagine. In fact, we'll pretend we're about to overtake something now. So we're cruising along at, let's do 30 miles an hour. So we're cruising along behind a really annoying slow van. It's clear to go, indicate, and there's 60. I mean, you just don't get anything quicker than that. Nothing will overtake any faster than that. It's just ridiculous speeds, it really is. And that's at 970 newton meters of torque. That's 20% more torque than the RS Q8 has. In fact, it's 20% more torque than a McLaren Senna has. And yes, it's a lot heavier than both of those cars, well, the McLaren Senna especially, but it just, its overtaking ability is ridiculous. And in fact, if you've got passengers in the car, you do need to pre-warn them if you're going to accelerate, because it could hurt their neck. You know, it's that instant boom. It's just so fast. Time lapse is going to come back on, and I'm going to join you guys in about an hour's time. Hopefully by then covered well over 100 miles. Okay, you join me just past the 3-hour mark on this range test video, and we've covered almost exactly 140 miles. The car is telling me that it has 73 miles left in the range, so that brings it up to about 213 miles, which is very close to their quoted figure, and a lot better than I thought we were going to get when we set off from the charging station earlier on. Since I last spoke to you, we went across the A40 towards Oxford, and then we came westbound towards London on the M40. We then did a little leg of the M25 to the M4, and then we headed to Heathrow Terminal 2 and 3. I haven't been to Heathrow for ages, so I just fancied the trip there. Obviously, it was completely dead. No one's there. Hardly anyone is still flying. So, nice little loop there. Back on the M4, M25. Now I've come one junction in on the M40, and I'm going through Denham Village. This is where I live for the past 10 years. I've recently moved, so I can now disclose that I used to live here. A lot of people had figured that out on Instagram and stuff. Beautiful village, as you can hopefully see. 3 really nice pubs, good food, good beer, etc. Very expensive, mind you. I think the pint is about £6 nowadays. But yeah, this was basically exactly where I lived for the past 9 and a bit years. Absolutely stunning place. So you got the Swan, which is really good for food, and then you got the Green Man, which is more of a pubby pub. Very good for yeah, to grab a pint. They've both got very nice beer gardens and stuff. And the Green Man actually does the best ribs on the planet. Obviously, I'm not getting paid for that. Falcon is good for beer as well because it's opposite the Green. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. A lot of memories here, a lot of very good memories, and as you can see, it's just an absolutely beautiful village, and not many people know about it because it's just inside the M25, like a couple of miles away, and it really doesn't feel like it's inside the M25. It feels a lot more like we're in the Cotswolds or somewhere like that. So if you ever fancy a good drink, once things open up properly and some good food, head into Denham Village. Anyway, now we're gonna head off. I'm gonna go maybe cross country. Maybe I'm gonna head up towards Beaconsfield, then join the M40, head back out again. My aim is to finish up at a Instavolt station in Aylesbury, which is very close to where I live now. And the reason I'm gonna end up there is, well, number one, it's close to where I live, and number two, the Instavolt charging station that's there is always very reliable, because obviously I need to get to a place that's reliable. That's the other thing with EVs. If you're going to run it all the way down, you need to make sure that wherever you're heading to does have electricity and it does work, because otherwise you are well and truly stuck. Unlike with a petrol station, well, there's two just there, there's another one a couple of miles this way, there's another Shell station about a mile down that road there, so you've got options. Not so much with the infrastructure, or the current infrastructure and charging network. If an EV is your only car, it's still a difficult proposition to live with because of its limited range. Today, yes, we're going to show that you can eke out 200 plus miles, hopefully, with this particular car. But unless you have a Tesla, I think Tesla's the only way around it, because Tesla, you're going to get realistic range of, well, close to 300, maybe even over 300 miles. And you've got the Tesla supercharger network, which is, you know, pretty much everywhere, and that kind of works. But the downside of that is you have to own a Tesla, and they're ugly to look at. The fit and finish is terrible. They're just horrible. All this big massive iPad, it's horrible. Sure, Model 3 Performance is a very good value electric car, and in fact it's a very good value performance car when you look at its stats, but they're really not that exciting to live with, and that goes for all EVs in my opinion. They're just not. Once you've experienced that acceleration once or twice or three times, that's it. The excitement's over, and there's nothing too exciting to enjoy. But anyway, onwards and upwards. I'm going through Gerrard's Cross now, as I say, Beaconsfield, M40. Just have to kind of drag it out. I wasn't expecting the range to be this good. I was actually going to head straight from here to Aylesbury, because I figured that it would be like 180-ish range, but it looks like it's going to be over 200. So thumbs up for Audi, thumbs down for me getting home in time for dinner. Okay guys, it's getting dark out there. We've just gone past the 4 hour and 15 minute mark and just about to clock over 200 miles. There we go, 200 miles. It says we got 6 miles left in the range, and thankfully the charger is 2.5 miles away, so hopefully we should be able to do it. Over the past 10 or so miles, things have been shutting down, so I can't use cruise control. I've actually turned off the climate control. And now I'm only allowed to use about 27 or 8% of the available power and torque. So that's still plenty to keep up with the national speed limit. But yeah, it's interesting to see everything slowly shutting down, and as the car sort of conserves its last bit of energy, because, well, yeah, once it's flat, it's flat. If this was a combustion engine vehicle, a bit like my 7 Series, I would keep pushing it and seeing how far I could go. But seeing as it's an EV, I really don't want to do that, because once you do run out of power, that's it. You've then got to call the AA or whoever to come and rescue you, and I don't want that situation to happen. Maybe you get to 0 and it will continue to go on for a few more miles. I don't know. I can't test that. But I think the impressive thing is we've now done 201 miles, and it looks like we're going to get a realistic range of about 206, 207 miles, which is only, what, about 7% down on what they claim. So that's not too bad at all. I now only have 25% of power left, and I've got a range of 4 miles, but we've managed to do 202.6 miles. That might be 0.7 by the time we pull in here. Oh, I tell you what, it's really nice seeing these, much more so than when you pull into a fuel station with zero miles left. Well, let's just quieten that up. There you go. I'm going to charge this up and get home because it's 20 past 8. I'm probably going to have to hang here for 20 minutes, half an hour, just to get a small amount of range. EVs, well, I'm not ready for them personally, and I'm not going to buy one until I need to, but I guess 200 miles is good enough for the majority of people, and most people that own EVs tend to have garages with chargers in them, and the only time your car would tend to charge is when you're at home, and these sort of things are to get you out of trouble. So I get why people have them, and I get, you know, the advantages behind them, but for me, I'm just not ready for them. If you want to see more content on this Audi e-tron S, please head over to my Yes Auto page. There's a link in the description below. Cheers guys, thanks a lot for watching.